The medical room on the Valoran station was pure white. Everything gleamed under bright lights. No dust, no dirt, no bacteria. The Valorans were very proud of this. They had killed every germ in their world 600 years ago. Disease was something they read about in old books like war or poverty. Dr. Hyun-woo stood outside the room and watched through the glass. Inside, Ambassador Tae-young lay on a bed. The ambassador's skin looked gray. Sweat covered his face. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. Hyun-woo pressed his hand against the glass. Something was very wrong. He had seen these signs before back on Earth. This looked like an infection. A bad one, but that should be impossible here. The Valorans had made their station completely sterile. "Let me in," Hyun-woo said to the Valoran guard. "I can help him." The guard, tall and thin with blue skin, looked down at him. "Our physicians are handling this. Your primitive medicine is not needed." "He needs treatment now," Hyun-woo said. His voice stayed calm, but his hands formed fists. "Every minute matters. No humans allowed. Security protocol." Hyun-woo watched helplessly as Tae-young's body shook. The Valoran doctors moved around the bed, their long fingers dancing over glowing screens. But Hyun-woo could see they were confused. They did not know what they were fighting. 3 hours later, Ambassador Tae-young was dead. The Valoran High Chancellor appeared on every screen in the station. His face was calm, his voice smooth. "A tragic heart condition," he announced. "These humans have such weak bodies. We tried our best, but some things cannot be saved." Hyun-woo knew this was a lie. He had worked with Tae-young for 3 months. The ambassador's heart was fine. His medical records showed no problems. This was not heart failure. This was something else. That night, Hyun-woo could not sleep. He sat in his small room on the human section of the station. Through his window, he could see Valora Prime below. The planet glowed with lights from 1,000 cities. 12 billion people lived down there in perfect health and perfect order. His communicator beeped. It was Mireille, the communications officer. "Doctor, you need to hear this." Her voice was tight with worry. "I have been listening to the Valoran medical channels. They are using emergency codes. Something is spreading." Hyun-woo felt ice in his stomach. "What kind of something?" "They are not saying." But 5 more cases appeared today. Then 20. Then 50. The numbers are growing fast. "And doctor?" She paused. "They all have the same symptoms that Tae-young had." The next morning, everything changed. The station went into lockdown. Alarms echoed through the corridors. Valoran guards ran past the human quarters with weapons drawn. Through the windows, Hyun-woo saw ships leaving the planet in streams, fleeing to other worlds. Captain Ji-hai called an emergency meeting. All 23 humans on the station gathered in their small conference room. The captain stood at the front, her military posture straight and strong. "The situation is critical," Ji-hai said. "Mireille has intercepted communications from across Valora Prime. A plague has broken out. The Valorans cannot identify it. Their medical computers have no match for it in their databases, and it spreads very fast." "How fast?" someone asked. 3 days ago, we had 1 case. Today, the planet has 3 million infected. Tomorrow, Ji-hai did not finish the sentence. The room fell silent. 3 million in 3 days. On a planet that had not seen disease in 6 centuries. Something terrible was happening. Mireille spoke up. "It gets worse. The plague has jumped to 4 neighboring systems. The Krillian hive worlds, the Talon colonies, the Bright Rings, the Phoenix sector. They are all reporting infections." "That is impossible," someone whispered. "Those systems are light years apart. How could something spread so fast?" Hyun-woo stood up. "The Valorans have thousands of ships traveling between systems every day. If someone carried the pathogen before showing symptoms, they could spread it everywhere before anyone knew." "What about us?" asked a young engineer. "Are we in danger?" Hyun-woo looked at his hands. He had touched Tae-young's body after death. He had spent hours in the same rooms as infected Valorans. By all logic, he should be sick by now. But he felt fine. So did everyone else on the human team. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but we have all been exposed. If we were going to get sick, it should have happened already." Captain Ji-hai made her decision. "We are leaving, now. The Valorans ordered a quarantine of the entire system, but I will not wait here to die. We go home to Earth." "That is against Valoran law," someone protested. "I do not care about their laws anymore," Ji-hai said coldly. "They let Tae-young die. They lied about it. And now they want to keep us trapped here while their civilization falls apart. No. We leave within the hour. The humans moved quickly. They gathered their belongings and ran to their ship. Valoran guards tried to stop them, but Jihai had planned for this. She had been a fighter pilot in Earth's resource wars. She knew how to break through blockades. Their ship, the Morning Star, launched from the station with alarms screaming. Valoran defense ships moved to intercept, but they were slow. The humans had one advantage. Their ship was old and simple. No fancy computers, no complex systems, just engines and determination. As they flew away from Valora Prime, Hyunwoo looked back at the planet. Even from space, he could see something was wrong. The lights were going out. City by city, the glow was fading. A whole civilization was dying in the dark. Mireille worked at her station, listening to transmissions from across the galaxy. Her face grew paler with each message. The Krillian hive worlds just went silent, she said quietly. All of them. 50 billion people, and now, nothing. How long since their first case? Hyunwoo asked. 4 days. 4 days to kill 50 billion. Hyunwoo had studied every plague in human history. The Black Death, the Spanish flu. Nothing came close to this speed. Then Mireille received a message that made everyone stop. It is from Earth, she said. From the Planetary Defense Council. The message was short. Captain Jihai read it aloud to the crew. Morningstar, return to Earth immediately. Do not engage quarantine protocols. Do not expose yourself to the plague further. We have been monitoring the situation. Humanity may be the only species with natural immunity. We need to understand why before the plague reaches our world. Come home now. The crew looked at each other. Natural immunity? How was that possible? They were just humans. Primitive by galactic standards. Earth was quarantined because it was too dirty, too full of germs and disease. The advanced species had always looked down on humanity for living in such a messy, dangerous world. But now those advanced species were dying. And humanity, with their dirty, dangerous world, seemed to be safe. Hyunwoo stood at the window and watched the stars. Somewhere out there, trillions were dying. Whole species were going extinct. The galaxy was ending, and somehow, against all odds, the humans were immune. But why? The Morning Star approached Earth 3 weeks after leaving Valora Prime. During those weeks, the galaxy had fallen silent. System after system stopped transmitting. Species after species disappeared. Mireille kept count at first, but she stopped when the number grew too large to bear. Earth looked the same as always. Blue and green and white covered in clouds and oceans. Beautiful and messy. The humans on the ship felt their hearts lift. They were home. They were safe, but Earth was not the same. As they entered orbit, military ships surrounded them. Weapons locked onto their hull. A stern voice came through the communications channel. Morningstar, you will proceed to Quarantine Station 7. No contact with the surface. No contact with any other vessels. Any deviation will result in your destruction. Captain Jihai gripped her controls. They had escaped one quarantine only to enter another. But this time it was different. This time their own people were pointing guns at them. The quarantine station was a massive ring in orbit. Medical teams in sealed suits met them at the airlock. Every human from the Morning Star was tested, scanned, and examined. Blood samples were taken. Skin swabs were collected. Even the air they breathed was analyzed. Dr. Hyunwoo submitted to every test without complaint. He understood. Earth had to be careful. One mistake could doom them all. After 6 days of testing, Director Dayun came to meet them. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had run Earth's Planetary Health Council for 15 years. She had seen plagues before. She had watched millions die. But nothing had prepared her for this. Welcome home, she said to the crew. You are all clean. No infection. No contamination. You have been exposed to the deadliest pathogen the galaxy has ever seen, and yet you are perfectly healthy. Why? Hyunwoo asked. Why are we immune? Tarn smiled, but it was not a happy smile. Because we are human. Because our ancestors suffered for millions of years. Come, I will show you. They traveled down to Earth in a sealed transport. The destination was Geneva, to the Global Medical Research Complex. The facility was built inside an old mountain deep underground. It was where Earth kept samples of its deadliest diseases. Smallpox, Ebola, the Ganges fever, thousands of pathogens, frozen and preserved. In a conference room carved from stone, Dayun showed them what her team had discovered. Dr. Xiongmin, a young scientist with tired eyes, stood beside a large screen. "The plague is artificial," Xiongmin began. "Not natural. It was designed, though we do not know by whom yet. But whoever made it created something perfect. Too perfect." He showed them images of the pathogen. It was beautiful in a terrible way. Its structure was elegant and efficient. This plague attacks immune systems that are too clean, too perfect. Species like the Valorans eliminated disease from their world centuries ago. Their bodies forgot how to fight. Their immune systems became weak because they never had to struggle. Xiongmin pulled up another image. This one showed human cells fighting the plague. Humans are different. Our immune systems are like soldiers who have fought 1,000 battles. Earth has always been hostile. Our world is full of bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi. We have been fighting them since before we even became human. Millions of years of warfare shaped our bodies. He showed them history. The Black Death that killed half of Europe. The Spanish flu that killed 50 million, HIV, COVID-19, malaria, tuberculosis. On and on, plague after plague, each one killing millions but never all of humanity. Each one making the survivors stronger. Our ancestors paid in blood, Dayun said quietly. They died in agony so that we could live. Every human alive today is descended from survivors. We carry their resistance in our genes. That is why we are immune. The room was silent. Captain Jihai thought about the Valorans who had looked down on humanity. They had called Earth primitive. They had laughed at human medicine as crude and outdated. They had refused to help Earth during its own plagues, saying humans needed to solve their own problems. Now those Valorans were dead, and humanity, dirty and primitive, was alive. "There is more," Xiongmin said. He looked nervous now. "The plague cannot reach Earth, we tested it. Earth's atmosphere has billions of different microbes. They attack the plague before it can spread. Our world is so full of life, so full of competing organisms that the plague cannot survive here. Earth is not just humanity's home. It is our fortress," Mireille spoke up. "So we are safe. Earth is safe. We can just wait here until the plague burns itself out in the galaxy." "We could," Doan agreed. "We could hide here on our dirty little planet and watch the galaxy die. Or, Hyunwoo asked, though he already knew. "Or we can help them. We can save them." The words hung in the air. Save them. Save the species who had dismissed humanity. Save the civilizations who had refused to help Earth when it needed assistance. Save the galaxy that had never wanted humans in the first place. Xiongmin showed them the treatment he had developed. It used human antibodies. The immune response from human blood could be transferred to other species. It would modify their immune systems, make them more like humans, more able to fight. "But there is a problem," Xiongmin said. "The antibodies only work fresh. We cannot freeze them or store them. They must come from living humans, and they must be delivered quickly. This means humans would need to go into plague zones and donate blood directly." "How dangerous?" Jihai asked. "Very. The plague is mutating. Human immunity is strong but not perfect. We could lose people. Many people." The Planetary Council met for 3 days. The debate was fierce. Some argued for isolation. Why should humanity risk itself for species who had shown no kindness? Let the galaxy burn. Earth would survive and rebuild. Others argued for profit. Sell the treatment. Make the desperate aliens pay everything they had. Use this moment to make Earth wealthy and powerful. But Da-Yun argued for compassion. "We know what it feels like to suffer. We know what it feels like when no one helps. We can be better than that. We must be better than that." The council decided to let the people vote. Every human on Earth cast a ballot. The question was simple. Should humanity help save the galaxy? 67% said yes. When the results came in, Hyunwoo felt tears on his face. He thought about his sister who had died in the Siberian plague. He thought about all the humans who had died from disease throughout history. Their suffering had meaning now. Their deaths had prepared humanity for this moment. Captain Jihai volunteered to lead the mission. Mireille volunteered to coordinate communications. Xiongmin would oversee the medical protocols, and Hyunwoo would go back into the plague zones as a field doctor. 15,000 humans volunteered within the first day. Doctors, nurses, pilots, engineers. They knew the risks. They went anyway. As the fleet prepared to launch, a message arrived from deep space. It came from the Ashkari homeworld. The Ashkari were masters of biology. If anyone could have stopped the plague, it should have been them. But the message was not a cry for help. It was a confession. A single Ashkari appeared on screen. She was dying. Her body was covered in sores. Her voice was weak. "We made it," she whispered. "The plague. We created it. We thought we could control disease. We thought we could make a weapon that would stop wars without killing. We were wrong. So very wrong. It evolved. It changed. By the time we understood what we had done, it was too late. Now we are dying. Now everyone is dying. And it is our fault." The Ashkari coughed blood. "Please do not make our mistake. Do not try to perfect life. Life is meant to be messy. Life is meant to struggle. We forgot that. We paid the price. Learn from us. Remember us. We are so sorry." The transmission ended. The Ashkari homeworld went silent forever. Yanwu stood on the launch platform and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere up there, trillions were dying because someone had tried to eliminate disease completely. They had tried to make life perfect and clean. They had tried to remove all struggle, but humanity had never tried that. Humanity had lived with disease, fought it, died from it, and through all that suffering, through all that pain, humanity had become strong. The ships launched one by one, carrying their human crews into the dying galaxy. They did not go as conquerors. They did not go as saviors. They went as survivors who remembered what suffering felt like. They went to share that hard-earned strength with anyone who wanted to live. 3 months had passed since the relief effort began. The galaxy was still dying, but slower now. The humans had bought time. The question was whether time would be enough. Captain Jihai sat in a conference room with representatives from 12 surviving species. They were discussing the future. What kind of galaxy would emerge from this disaster? Who would lead it? Who would make the decisions that determined whether civilization survived or fell apart completely? The old power structures were gone. The Velaran Empire was broken. The Krillian collective was scattered. The Ashkari communion was extinct. Every species that had once ruled was now struggling just to exist, and in that vacuum, all eyes turned to humanity. A Velaran counselor spoke first. His name was Kelvar, and he was one of the few surviving government officials. "Humanity must lead us. You saved us. You proved your strength. Take your place as the new rulers of the galaxy." Jihai felt uncomfortable. She had not come here to rule anyone. She had come to help. There was a difference. "We did not save you to control you," she said carefully. "We saved you because it was right." "But someone must coordinate rebuilding," a Krillian representative said. Her name was Thixra, one of the new queens trying to rebuild the hive mind. "Someone must organize trade, defense, medical support. Our old systems are destroyed. We need new leadership, and humans are the only species strong enough to provide it." The meeting went on for hours. Every species had opinions. Some wanted humanity to take complete control. Others wanted partnership. A few wanted to be left alone entirely, traumatized by the plague and wanting no more contact with the wider galaxy. Back on Earth, the Planetary Council faced the same questions. Director Da-Un stood before the assembly and presented 3 options. The first option was empire. Humanity could seize control while everyone else was weak. Establish human dominance. Use their unique immunity as leverage to reshape the galaxy in Earth's image. Some counselors supported this. They argued humanity had earned the right to rule through sacrifice. The second option was withdrawal. Bring all humans home. Seal Earth's borders. Let the other species figure out their own problems. Humanity had done enough. Now it was time to focus on their own world. General Byung-ho led this faction. He had never wanted Earth involved in galactic affairs in the first place. The third option was partnership. Create a new galactic framework where all species had equal voices. Humanity would provide medical support and guidance, but not domination. Build something better than what came before. This was Da-Yun's choice. "We have seen what happens when one species believes itself superior," Da-Yun said. The Valorans thought they were perfect. The Ashkari thought they could control life itself. Their arrogance destroyed them. "If we make the same mistake, we will deserve the same fate." The debate was fierce, but in the end Earth chose partnership. Not because it was easy, not because it was profitable, but because it was right. The Immunity Coalition was formed. Representatives from every surviving species gathered on a neutral space station to sign the agreement. Humanity would provide medical support. All species would share resources and technology. Decisions would be made collectively. No single species would have veto power. It was not perfect. Nothing ever is. but it was better than what came before. While the politicians were building the new order, Dr. Xiongmin was investigating the old one. He led a scientific mission to the coordinates Mireille had found in the Ashkari files. The location of the ancient facility where the plague had originated. The facility orbited a dead star in unexplored space. It was massive, built from materials that should not exist. The technology was millions of years old, yet still functional. Xiongmin's team explored carefully, documenting everything. They found laboratories filled with biological weapons, viruses, bacteria, engineered plagues that made the current outbreak look gentle. And they found a message, carved into the walls in a language that took their computers weeks to translate. It was a warning from the civilization that built this place. We sought to perfect life. We sought to eliminate all weakness, all disease, all struggle. We succeeded. And in our success, we destroyed ourselves. Life cannot be perfected. Life must struggle to remain strong. We learned this too late. If you find this place, you have suffered as we did. You have learned what we could not teach. Remember this lesson. Life is meant to be messy. Life is meant to fight. Never forget. Xiongmin read the message 3 times. Then he sealed the facility permanently. Some knowledge was too dangerous to preserve. Back on Valora Prime, Dr. Haiyan Wu continued his work. The medical stations were more organized now, more efficient. They were saving more people every day, but the cost continued to mount. Over 12,000 human volunteers had died, some from exhaustion, some from evolved strains of the plague, some from simple accidents in the chaos of the relief zones. Every death hurt. Hyunwoo knew most of them by name. They were not just numbers. They were people, doctors who had given everything to help strangers, pilots who had flown one mission too many, engineers who had worked until their bodies failed, heroes, all of them. But they would never be famous. Most of the galaxy would never know their names. They would die as they had lived, quietly doing what needed to be done. Mireille maintained the memorial records. She documented every human casualty, recorded their names, their ages, their homes, interviewed their families when possible. Someone needed to remember, someone needed to tell their stories. Late at night she would read through the files, a pilot from Brazil who loved to sing, a doctor from India who collected old books, an engineer from Korea who had 3 children waiting at home. Each one was a whole universe of experiences and dreams now ended. The grief was enormous, but so was the pride. These people had faced the worst disaster in galactic history and had not run away. They had run toward it. That meant something. 4 months after the relief effort began, the plague finally stabilized. It was still present. It would always be present now. But it was no longer spreading uncontrollably. The treated populations had developed resistance. Their children would carry that resistance forward. The galaxy had survived, barely. The population had fallen from 15 trillion to just over 2 trillion. Most species had lost more than half their numbers. Some had lost 90%. The cultural and economic devastation was beyond calculation, but they had survived. And that was everything. Captain Ji Hai stood on the observation deck of her ship and looked at the stars. They looked the same as always, cold and distant and beautiful, but everything had changed. Humanity had left Earth as curious explorers hoping to join the galactic community. They were returning as something else entirely. Not conquerors, not saviors, but partners. Essential partners that the galaxy could not survive without. She thought about her brother who had died donating blood. She thought about the thousands of others who had given everything. What they had built with their sacrifice was not an empire. It was something better. It was a community based on mutual need and shared survival. Was it worth the cost? Jihai did not know. She would probably never know. But it was done. The choice had been made. Now they had to live with it. A message came through from Dr. Haiyan Wu on Valora Prime. We are preparing to close the main medical station. The local physicians can handle things from here. Requesting permission to return home. Jihai smiled. Home. That sounded wonderful. Permission granted, she replied. All ships prepare for Earth transit. We are going home. The fleet began its journey back to Earth. Behind them, they left a changed galaxy. Ahead of them waited rest, recovery, and the complex work of building something new. But for now, just for this moment, they were going home. And that was enough. 5 years had passed since the plague. The galaxy was rebuilding. Slowly, painfully. but rebuilding. Dr. Haiyan Wu walked through the gardens of the Planetary Memorial in Geneva. The memorial was a simple place. No grand monuments, just gardens with stones bearing names. Over 12,000 stones. One for each human who died during the relief effort. He came here every year on the anniversary of Ambassador Taeyong's death. The ambassador had been the first victim. His death had started everything. It seemed right to remember him. Yanwu was older now. His hair had gone gray. His hands shook sometimes from the damage done by too many blood donations. But he was alive. He was healthy. And he was still a doctor. He ran the Immunity Coalition Medical Corps now. It was his job to train physicians from across the galaxy, teaching them about adaptive immunity, teaching them how to work with human donors, teaching them that disease was not an enemy to eliminate but a force to manage. A child approached him in the garden. She was Veleran, maybe 12 years old. She spoke perfect Korean, learned from human teachers. "Dr. Hyunwoo?" she asked politely. "My grandmother told me to thank you. She said you saved our whole species." Hyunwoo smiled. "No, we did not save you alone. We shared what evolution taught us. The real work is what comes after. Building something worth surviving for." The child nodded seriously. Then she ran off to join a group of friends. Humans and Velerans and Krillians playing together in the garden, a sight that would have been impossible before the plague. Captain Jihai had retired from military service. She ran the Survivors Academy now. It was a school where young people from all species learned, together, history, science, medicine, languages, everything they would need to build a better galaxy. She stood in front of her class and taught them about the plague, not to frighten them, but so they would understand, so they would remember. The plague killed trillions, she said. It destroyed civilizations. It brought the galaxy to its knees. But it also taught us something important. It taught us that perfection is a lie. That struggle makes us strong. That helping each other is not weakness, but the truest form of strength. A student raised his hand. He was human, born after the plague. He had never known the old galaxy. "Teacher, why did humanity help? The other species had been cruel to us. They could have just let them die." Jihai thought about this. She remembered her own anger, her own hatred of the Valorans who had looked down on humanity, but she also remembered her brother who died donating blood. She remembered the Valoran child who hugged Dr. Hyunwoo while he cried. "Because revenge is easy," she said finally. "Compassion is hard. Anyone can hate. Anyone can walk away. But it takes real courage to help someone who hurt you, to show mercy when no one would blame you for refusing. That is what makes us better than we were." Mireille continued her work documenting history. She ran the Immunity Coalition Historical Archive. Every species that survived the plague had their story recorded. Every world that fell had their memory preserved. She had interviewed thousands of survivors, collected millions of records, built a library that would last for generations. Because remembering was important. The galaxy needed to remember both the horror and the hope. Sometimes she worked late into the night, translating old transmissions, organizing files, making sure nothing was lost. It was exhausting work, but it mattered. One evening, Dr. Xiong Min visited her. He looked tired but satisfied. His research continued. He was always studying the plague, watching for mutations, preparing for the next crisis. "The plague will never truly disappear," he told her. "It is part of the galaxy now, but we know how to manage it. We know how to live with it. That is enough." They sat together in comfortable silence, two people who had lived through the end of the old galaxy and the birth of the new. Director Da Yun had become the first human representative to the Coalition Council. She worked with leaders from dozens of species. They made decisions together. They solved problems together. They disagreed often, but they talked instead of fighting. That was progress. The new galaxy was not perfect. Resources were still scarce. Conflicts still emerged. Some species struggled more than others, but they faced these challenges together. The old divisions had fallen. New connections had formed. Earth had changed too. It was no longer a quarantined backwater. It was a hub. Ships came and went constantly. Trade flourished. Earth's medical facilities were the best in the galaxy because they had to be. Every human still carried the responsibility of maintaining galactic immunity. Blood donation was now a civic duty. Every healthy human gave regularly. It was their contribution to the greater good. Some complained about it, but most understood. This was the price of survival. This was how humanity had earned its place. On a coalition vessel traveling between systems, Captain Ji-hai stood on the bridge with Mi-Ray at communications and Seong-min reviewing medical data. They were older now, gray hair and tired eyes, but they were still working, still building. Dr. Hyun-woo joined them from the medical bay. He had been treating a crew member who had caught a minor infection. Nothing serious, just regular work. You know, Hyun-woo said, looking at the stars through the view screen. Sometimes I think about what the Ashkari said, about how we should not try to perfect life, how struggle is necessary. They were right, Seong-min said. Evolution only works through pressure. Remove all pressure and you get weakness. Earth never tried to eliminate disease completely. We just learned to survive it. And that made us strong, Mi-Ray added. Strong enough to help others. Strong enough to save the galaxy? Ji-hai shook her head. We did not save the galaxy. We just shared what we learned from Earth. Our world is messy and dangerous, but that danger taught us wisdom. The kind of wisdom you cannot learn in sterile laboratories. They stood together watching the stars. Somewhere out there were mysteries still waiting, dangers still lurking. The ancient facility they had sealed was not the only one. There would be other challenges, other threats, but the galaxy was no longer fragmented. The species that survived had learned to work together. They had learned that diversity was strength, that struggle was necessary, that helping each other was the only way forward. Back on Earth in the gardens of the planetary memorial, the names of the dead stood silent on their stones. 12,000 humans who gave everything. They would never be forgotten. Every child in the new galaxy learned their story. Every species remembered their sacrifice. And on planets across the galaxy, life continued. Not perfect life, not sterile or controlled, but messy, struggling, beautiful life, the kind of life that Earth had always known, the kind of life that could survive anything. Dr. Hyun-woo visited the memorial one last time, before leaving Earth on another mission. He touched his sister's stone. She had died in the Siberian plague long before the Galactic crisis, but in a way her death had prepared him for what came after. Her suffering had meaning now. We did it, he whispered to her stone. We survived. And we helped others survive too. You would be proud. He turned and walked away. Behind him Earth rose in the sky, blue and green and white, messy and beautiful and alive. The planet that taught humanity how to survive. The planet that saved the galaxy by refusing to be perfect. The galaxy had fallen to a plague that killed everything clean and perfect. But it could not kill Earth, it could not kill humanity, because humans were not clean. They were not perfect. They were survivors, and in the end that made all the difference. Life cannot be controlled. It cannot be perfected. It can only be survived, adapted to, and shared. That was the lesson Earth taught the galaxy. That was the wisdom bought with billions of years of struggle and pain. And as humanity spread across the stars, working alongside the species they had saved, they carried that lesson with them. Not as rulers, not as conquerors, but as partners who understood that survival was not about being the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced. Survival was about being the most adaptable, the most resilient, the most willing to help when others needed it most. That was humanity's gift to the galaxy, and it would echo through the stars for as long as life endured. Captain Ji-hai stood on the bridge of her ship and watched Valora Prime grow larger on the screen. The planet looked dead. The lights that had once covered every continent were gone. Only darkness remained. Behind her ship, 200 human vessels followed. Each one carried medical teams, supplies, and hope. But mostly they carried fear. They were flying into the heart of the plague, and none of them knew if they would return. Population scan complete, the navigator said. We are detecting 400 million life signs, down from 12 billion 3 weeks ago. 400 million. Ji-hai felt sick. That meant 11 billion Velerans were dead. The mathematics of extinction. Take us down, she ordered. Medical teams prepare for deployment. They landed in what had been the capital city. The streets were empty. Bodies lay where they had fallen. The buildings stood silent like tombstones. This had been the center of galactic civilization, the jewel of the Valoran Empire. Now it was a graveyard. Dr. Hyun-woo led his medical team through the streets. They set up stations in abandoned hospitals and schools. Within hours, the survivors began to emerge from hiding. They came slowly at first, afraid this was another cruel trick of the plague. But when they saw the humans were healthy, they came in floods. Hyunwoo worked without stopping. Each patient needed blood plasma from a human donor. Each treatment took an hour to administer. Each person saved meant one human gave part of themselves. The math was brutal. 23 humans could save maybe 200 Valorans per day. At that rate, they would never save everyone. But more human ships kept arriving. More volunteers kept coming. The numbers grew. 200 patients per day became 2,000. Then 20,000. High Chancellor Vorthek came to the main medical station on the third day. He had to be carried. The plague had destroyed most of his body. He was dying and everyone knew it. Hyunwoo treated him personally. As the human antibodies flowed into the Chancellor's veins, the old Valoran spoke. "Why?" he whispered. "Why did you come? We were cruel to your species. We refused to help when Earth suffered. Why do you help us now?" Hyunwoo checked the monitor. The Chancellor's vital signs were not improving. The treatment was not working. He was too far gone. "Because someone has to," Hyunwoo said. "Because revenge is not medicine. Because we know what suffering feels like." Vorthek closed his eyes. "We should have listened. You tried to warn us. You said that eliminating disease would make us weak. You said struggle was necessary. We laughed at you. We called you primitive." He coughed blood. "We were the primitives. We forgot what life truly is." An hour later, High Chancellor Vorthek died. Hyunwoo stood by his bedside for a moment, then moved to the next patient. There was no time for grief. Too many others needed help. On the other side of the galaxy, Dr. Xiongmin faced a different challenge. The Krillian hive worlds were home to an insectoid species with a shared consciousness. All Krillians were mentally connected through a neural network. When the plague hit them, it spread through that network like fire through dry grass. 50 billion Krillians died in 4 days. Only scattered millions remained isolated and traumatized. Their hive mind was broken. They were truly alone for the first time in their species' history. Xiongmin studied the problem. Treating each Krillian individually would take years. But the hive mind gave him an idea. If he could treat the queen, the central node of the network, her immunity might spread to the others through their neural connection. It was risky. If it failed, they would lose the queen and any chance of rebuilding Krillian civilization. But Xiongmin was not a man who played it safe. He had spent his life studying evolution. He knew that life only advanced through taking chances. He administered the treatment to the queen personally. For 6 hours, nothing happened. Then the queen's body began to change. Her immune system, boosted by human antibodies, started fighting back. And through the neural network, that fight spread to every connected Krillian. Within a day, millions of Krillians were recovering. One treatment had saved an entire species. Xiongmin allowed himself a small smile. Sometimes crazy ideas worked, but the victory came with a cost. 3 human medics working with Xiongmin contracted a mutated form of the plague. Their immune systems fought it, but they were badly weakened. One of them, a young doctor named Hansol, fell into a coma. Xiongmin sat beside Hansol's bed. The plague was learning. It was evolving to fight human immunity. What had protected them before might not protect them forever. Mirai coordinated communications from a command ship in orbit above Earth. Thousands of messages came in every hour. Requests for help. Reports of success. Notifications of human casualties. She tried to track it all, but the numbers became overwhelming. 847 human volunteers had died so far. Some from exhaustion, some from the evolved plague, some from accidents in the chaotic plague zones. Each death was reported to her. Each name was added to the growing list. Mirai kept working. She translated alien languages, coordinated supply shipments, and maintained the communication network that held the relief effort together. But at night, alone in her quarters, she read the names of the dead. She felt she owed them that much. Someone should remember them. One message came through that made her stop everything. It was from the Ashkari homeworld. The transmission was weak, barely readable. But the content made her blood run cold. She decrypted the files attached to the message. They contained the complete history of the plague's creation. The Ashkari had not invented it from nothing. They had found something, an ancient facility in unexplored space. Inside that facility were biological weapons from a civilization that died millions of years ago. The Ashkari had thought they were conducting original research, but they had actually been tampering with something far older and far more dangerous than they understood. The plague was not an accident. It was the weapon of a dead species unleashed by mistake into the modern galaxy. Mireille sent the information to Earth immediately. This changed everything. If the plague was an ancient weapon, there might be more weapons out there. There might be other dangers waiting to be discovered by curious species who did not know what they were. Unleashing, Captain Jihai received a personal message. While she was on Valora Prime, it came from Earth. Her brother had died. He was a blood donor who had given 15 times. His body had finally given out. The message said he had been proud of what she was doing. He had wanted her to know that. Jihai went to her quarters and locked the door. She let herself cry for 5 minutes. Then she washed her face, put on her uniform, and went back to work. There would be time to grieve later. Maybe. If any of them survived. The relief effort continued for weeks. Slowly, painfully, the tide began to turn. Not because the plague was defeated. It would never be completely defeated. But because enough people had been treated. Enough immune systems had been strengthened. The plague became manageable instead of extinction level. On Valora Prime, survivors began rebuilding. On the Krillian worlds, the hive mind reconnected. On 100 other planets, species that had been on the edge of extinction stepped back from the brink. Of 400 known intelligent species, 143 were completely extinct. The rest were shadows of what they had been. Trillions were dead. Whole civilizations had vanished. The galaxy would never be the same, but it was still alive. Barely. Desperately. But alive. Hyun Woo stood in a medical station and looked at his hands. They were covered in scars from needle punctures. He had donated blood 73 times in the past month. His body was exhausted, but he was still standing, still working, still fighting. A young Velaran approached him. She was maybe 10 years old by human standards. She had been treated 3 days ago and was recovering well. "Doctor?" she asked in careful English. "Why do humans help us? My teacher said humans were weak and stupid, but you saved me. You saved all of us. Why?" Hyun-woo knelt down to her level. He was too tired to think of a clever answer. So he told her the truth. "Because we have been where you are now. We have been sick and dying. We have watched our loved ones suffer. And we know how much it hurts to face that alone. So we came. We came so you would not have to face it alone." The child thought about this. Then she hugged him. Hyun-woo was surprised. Velarans were not usually affectionate with other species. But things had changed. The old rules did not matter anymore. He hugged her back and felt something break inside him. All the pain he had been holding. All the grief. All the exhaustion. It poured out of him in tears he could not stop. The child held him while he cried. A Velaran child comforting a human adult. A scene that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. But the plague had broken down many walls. Some of those walls had needed breaking for a long time. Around the galaxy, other walls were falling too. Humans and aliens worked side by side. They ate together. They grieved together. They built together. The old hierarchies meant nothing anymore. There were only survivors trying to help each other live. And humanity, once dismissed as primitive and weak, had become the center of everything. Not because they wanted power, but because they had something everyone else desperately needed. They had survived Earth, and Earth had taught them how to survive anything.